and where they're going to buy their next apartment and where they're going to birth their new yacht. But what they are also looking at is what is the cause close to their heart that they're going to support over the next 5 years. So you have a movement that was started in the United States by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and now they're beginning to have conversations with the extremely wealthy people around the world about the giving pledge in terms of how much of their money are they going to give away during their lifetime. And these are huge numbers. These are going to be numbers that are going to be settled into trusts and foundations and into philanthropic causes. These numbers are going to rival budgets of governments. So you got $2, $5, $10, $20 billion that is being settled into trusts where they will be fighting. They will be fighting for causes that they believe very strongly in. And there is a group of people that believe someone like Bill Gates is probably going to be remembered more as a philanthropist than as someone who made mediocre software. And that is perhaps going to be his greatest legacy, is he helped fight the final eradication of polio or child illiteracy or malnutrition. And these are numbers that go into the billions of dollars, which even the governments are unable to support. So you will play a key role in being part of this, setting up structures and giving tax advice on philanthropic causes. So if you have not started with that, you may want to start thinking in that area. And given the way legislation is changing in India, with CSR becoming almost mandatory, you will have a much larger role to play in that. I'm happy to take questions or be challenged on any of these numbers. With permission of the chair, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. Can someone get the gentleman there a mic, please?
Mr. Mehta. Mr. Jhaveri. Hello, Mr. Jhaveri. So a question, Bill Gates or say Warren Buffett or anybody, they have started their philanthropy because of inheritance tax in the US.
Sorry, I didn't get that. They started their philanthropy because?
Partly because of the inheritance tax in the US. Now, do you foresee a trend where inheritance tax comes into India, like it is there in the developed part of the world?
I think you're completely misguided by saying philanthropy exists in the United States because of inheritance tax. That is just not true. The United States philanthropy, you take the philanthropy from all the other nations in the world combined, it does not stack up to what the United States is giving. So India used to have a very onerous wealth tax. In fact, families were ruined because of the wealth tax. At that time, philanthropy was not even on the horizon over there. So to say philanthropy exists because of inheritance tax is a little misguided. Yes.
My question is about Thomas Piketty's new book, which has been making waves around the world, Capitalism in the 20th Century, and its implications for the super rich around the world. What's your take on that?
Well, we've actually put out a paper on that, commenting or disputing some of the numbers and methods. We've put it out. I haven't gone through it in any detail. I'm in the process of doing that. So I can't comment with any sense of authority on those numbers. But and as a company, we have put out a commentary on these numbers. It's available on our website, but if you want, I'm happy to send you the link and put you onto our experts who can then perhaps start a debate or some sort of discussion with you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello. Good morning. I'm Vishal Thakkar. I am an author, plus I head a group of financial services companies. What you gave is a presentation on how wealth transfer will happen. I have a small question, that what are the key challenges that you feel will hit us on a priority basis while we help this transition of wealth from the older generation to the newer one? I think the three key challenges, if you could just mention.
Right. So the key challenges for you is going to be getting fees. People over here, when I say over here, it's not just India, hate paying for advice. I find this time and time again. When I was a private banker, they would spend a lot of money entertaining me at the club and at bars and things like that. And when I would send them a bill, they would just reject it. It would never get paid. But they were happy to spend money picking my brains as a professional, but privately at a club. So your greatest challenge is actually going to be able to demonstrate value that people are prepared to pay for. So if you're selling a house and tangible assets and real assets, it's actually pretty easy to separate a rich guy from his money. But to separate a rich guy from his money for advice is one of your greatest challenges. Does anybody want to dispute me on that over here? You dispute that. Fine. Okay. 1 out of about 200 of you. So I rest my case on that. That's going to be one of your greatest challenges, is demonstrating value for the advice you give to them.
Point taken. 2 more?
That's the biggest one, I would say. Right.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Yeah, here. My name is Yashwant Rao, here in the last. What I want to understand is this family offices, what we are discussing, and the wealth that they have. They are interested in basically looking at only philanthropic avenues, or also, some causes that are relevant for environment and stuff like that. The reason I'm asking you is we are in the business of solar power, and which helps the clean environment and all that. So would these family offices be interested in these kind of opportunities?
Sure. So philanthropy is actually very personal. It ranges from, the classic of helping underprivileged children and women's issues, and then it moves up towards things like the environment and clean water and clean air. But that philanthropy is very personal, and people are very passionate about this. But coming back to the role you will play in that is going to be setting up structures and giving tax advice and being able to put these into structures where it can actually be monitored. People do want to give. People do want to see good. They want to see their neighborhoods improve. They want to see their peer group and their brethren improve and improve their lives. In India, we are still at a stage where we still have cases of absolute poverty. And a lot of the philanthropy money will go towards that, as it rightly should. In some other parts of the world, you have philanthropy in the form of art. And it becomes a little bit more challenging in a place like India if you're going to be competing with other philanthropists to donate money to a cause for, say, something like art versus, poor children who may be malnourished or underprivileged. You're competing with dollars for causes like that. One of the key roles you will play in setting up family offices, it comes down to things like investment management. But this investment management and custody of assets and giving advice is going to have to span the entire spectrum of all the asset classes. So it's not just your cash, equities, bonds, and a little bit of futures and options and things like that. It's going to be alternative assets, art investment and wine investment and investing in property and having property portfolios. And it is going to be global. You're going to be having people invest in private equity or in unlisted firms in all parts of the world. And you're going to be the first port of call if you're going to have that relationship, if you're going to be the first year for this wealthy person. So you're going to have, you may not have the skills readily available, but what you should have is people on call or on tap that can actually provide your client with that advice. So your scope is going to change very dramatically, and especially with this new generation that's going to inherit this money, who have traveled the world, who have studied abroad, worked abroad, and have businesses abroad, their benchmark is going to be global. So there is going to be, you are going to be competing with multifamily offices that have been extremely successful around the world.
Hello? Yeah, what I want to know is not just the investment, not just as in a donation, but as a business investment, would these family offices be interested in this avenue? That's the question I'm trying to ask. Actually.
Yes. You have investments in philanthropy. There's this new term, this sexy term called impact investing. And these are run like businesses. These are philanthropic causes, charity causes that are self-sustaining and run like businesses. The most classic example is microfinance. Microfinance has been, Professor Yunus from Bangladesh started this and has been able to demonstrate a business model that is extremely sustainable, extremely profitable, and it is actually doing a lot of good in terms of getting people out of the trap of poverty. So it can be seen at charity at the highest level, or reaching the lowest rung of people at the bottom of the pyramid, and in impact investing. And you have a large number of causes and large number of charities that are self-sustaining and doing impact investing. And people are embracing that as part of the asset allocation within their portfolio. So you're going to see more and more of that. But very good point.
Thanks.
Mr. Jhaveri. Yeah.
Yes.
I have one question regarding what has been the global trend regarding independent backed family offices compared with financial institution backed family offices. What
Right.
has been the trend, and what you see the future, where the clients are getting more confidence?
So the good thing is, the trend we are seeing is wealthy people are beginning to go more into multifamily offices first and then single family offices. And why? This is largely because a lot of the banks I grew up with, when I saw them as competition, don't even exist anymore. So they've vanished. I have found very, very few bankers who've started their career in one bank, grown old, retired, and died in the same bank. It just doesn't happen anymore. So from a time when you start a relationship with a particular wealth manager or a private banker, you're going to see them change a number of roles. Either their bank disappears or they will change to another bank. What multifamily offices and family offices do is they allow for a certain continuity in the relationship. And wealthy people see that as golden, that the relationship continues. And we are living in an age where if there is a particular institution that has a very sexy product, it's not just limited to that institution. Anyone can get it. In fact, if it is so good, chances are someone will either buy the whole team that makes this product or provides the advice, or they'll just buy the institution. So when you say, we read things like, this multifamily office has open architecture, and that's a sexy way of saying, or a very cool way of saying, we can buy products from anyone and we can source these products from anyone, which is great. So it is the multifamily office or the single family office that will have multiple relationships with the service, with the big financial institutions. However, the client is buffered by the relationship, and the key, let's say, product or the key service or the key value that you will be providing your client is that of trust and a continuing relationship. So I'm a very big fan of family offices. And these typically are started by people who've been extremely successful. It's just like hedge fund managers. They were extremely successful in institutions and then decided to set up their own fund. So similarly with multifamily offices, and I can see that in this room, is a lot of you have been extremely successful with big institutions and said, right, let me start my own little gig and take 10, 15, 20 of my favorite clients where I've built up a level of trust and then grow my business from there. So the good news going forward is your industry is going to expand, and expand because clients are going to demand it. The bad news is your competition is also going to expand. Yes. One last one, and then I'll be done.
Mr. Jhaveri, very interesting presentation. I just would like to know what are the trends that's happening in US, especially with regard to the way the family office is looking at, Is it moving from investment management to the advisors being choice architects?
Right. The biggest trend we are seeing is not about investment management. Everyone does a damn good job on that. The biggest single trend right now is on tax transparency. This is what is going to keep a lot of private bankers awake at night, starting with FATCA. So the Americans have been able to break down secrecy in virtually every jurisdiction that has a meaningful private banking business. And taking the cue from that, you're having the Europeans that are now beginning to flex their muscle regarding tax transparency. So on a global basis, those of you that are in the business of giving tax advice and can give this on a global basis, you are already ahead of your competition that you're going to face in the next 5 to 10 years. In 5 and 10 years' time, the greatest skill is going to be in global tax planning rather than just having a globally diversified portfolio. Because wealthy people have got multiple residencies, they have multiple residences, they have businesses that are global and that are in 15, 20 different jurisdictions, and they are global nomads. You have people who are not staying in any jurisdiction for more than 30, 60, 90 days. And that's largely because of every taxman wants to get their peck from them. So giving advice on things like where should you establish your business and where you should be resident is going to be one of the key differentiators in your industry. Okay? So with that, I think I've been signaled over here that I'm out of time. But thank you very much. It's been an honor presenting this to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jhaveri. I would now request Ms. Deena Mehta to kindly come onto the stage and felicitate Mr.